The massive warship Bloodfang drifted silently through the void, its black hull absorbing starlight like a hungry predator. Inside the command chamber, War Commander Thexkar stood before a towering holographic display showing the spiral, arms of the galaxy. Red markers indicated conquered worlds, thousands of them, each one a testament to Krithak's supremacy. His amber eyes, each the size of a human fist, scanned the tactical readouts with practiced efficiency. At 8 feet tall, Thexkar was considered average for his species, though his obsidian scales bore the ritual scars of 100 successful hunts. The breathing apparatus grafted to his throat hissed softly as he processed the recycled atmosphere of his ship. "Commander," Sub-Commander Raxivol approached with the measured stride of a natural predator. His claws clicked against the metal, deck plating as he activated a data pad, with movements too quick for most species to follow. "The scouting reports from Sector 7749 have arrived." Thexkar's head turned with reptilian slowness, but his mind was anything but slow. The Krithak had evolved on a world where hesitation meant death, where only the fastest thinkers survived to breed. Their entire civilization was built on a simple principle: hunt or be hunted. "Show me," he commanded, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the ship's hull. The holographic display shifted, zooming past nebulae and star clusters until it focused on an unremarkable yellow star system. The third planet from the sun appeared as a blue-green marble suspended in the darkness, its single moon clearly visible. "The inhabitants call it Earth," Raxvol continued, manipulating the display to show detailed scans of the planet's surface. "Our deep space probes have been observing them for 6 standard cycles. They show all the signs of a primitive civilization, barely into their atomic age, no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light capability." Thexkar leaned forward, studying the rotating planet with the intensity of a predator, examining potential prey. His species had conquered worlds with trillion-credit defense systems and warriors bred for combat across multiple generations. This little blue world looked almost pathetically defenseless. Population analysis indicates approximately 8 billion individuals. Raxivol gestured to streams of data flowing beside the planetary display. They're spread across 7 major landmasses, with the largest concentration in urban centers. Their weapons technology appears to be based on primitive chemical propellants and metal projectiles. A low chuckle escaped Thexkar's throat, a sound like grinding stone. The last 3 worlds his hunting pack had conquered barely qualified as sport. The Zenthari had possessed energy weapons and orbital platforms, but they surrendered after losing a single city. The crystal beings of Mordak Prime had impressive defensive capabilities, but no fighting spirit whatsoever. Most disappointing of all were the Vorthani, a warrior culture that collapsed the moment they realized their plasma rifles couldn't penetrate Krithak battle armor. "Their biological composition is even more promising," Raxivol continued, clearly enjoying his commander's growing interest. "Soft skin with no natural armor plating, limited physical strength compared to galactic standards, and extremely fragile bone structure. Our preliminary analysis suggests they evolved on a relatively benign world with minimal predatory threats." The display shifted to show captured images of humans going about their daily lives. Thexkar watched with fascination as the small, pale creatures moved through their cities and countryside. They looked so vulnerable, so utterly unprepared for what was coming. 8 billion, he mused, savoring the number. "That's more prey than we've encountered in the last 50 cycles combined. They could provide sport for years if we manage them properly." Behind them, the bridge crew of 30 Krithak warriors listened with growing excitement. It had been too long since they'd encountered worthy prey. Their hunting instincts demanded challenge, demanded the thrill of stalking creatures that might actually fight back. "There's more, Commander." Raxvol activated another data stream. "Their planet appears to be extraordinarily diverse. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense forests, vast oceans, multiple terrain types for varied hunting experiences, and the population density varies significantly across regions, offering both mass hunts and more intimate tracking scenarios." Thexkar's eyes gleamed with predatory anticipation. The Krithak hunting philosophy was simple: the more challenging the prey, the greater the honor. But they had grown so powerful, so technologically advanced that few species could provide. Even minimal resistance. "Prepare the assault fleet," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 millennia of conquest. "Signal the warpacks on Bone Crusher and Deathstalker. This hunt will require our full attention." As the massive ships began their approach toward the small blue world, none of the Krithak could imagine that they were about to encounter something unprecedented in their long history of galactic domination, a species that simply refused to become prey. Captain Lee Jun pressed his body against the massive trunk of a centuries-old cecropia tree, feeling the rough bark through his torn camouflage uniform. The Amazon rainforest had become his world for the past 72 hours, ever since the sky caught fire and humanity's carefully ordered civilization crumbled in a matter of minutes. He could still see those first moments burned into his memory, the colossal alien ships emerging from hyperspace like dark mountains, materializing in Earth's atmosphere. The Brazilian military base where he'd been stationed had lasted exactly 14 minutes against the invaders' energy weapons. Tanks that had seemed invincible just days before were reduced to pools of glowing metal. Aircraft simply vanished, in brilliant flashes of light. But Lee Jun hadn't died with his base. Neither had the 43 soldiers who'd managed to escape into the jungle with him. They'd done what humans had always done when faced with overwhelming odds. They adapted, they learned, and they prepared to fight back with whatever they had. Lieutenant Park Hana lay prone on a thick branch 15 feet above the forest floor, her modified hunting rifle equipped with a scope salvaged from their destroyed armory. Her breathing was so controlled, it barely disturbed the leaves around her. She'd been a competitive shooter before joining the military, but the past 3 days had turned her into something far more dangerous, a predator who understood her territory. "Movement at 2 o'clock, she whispered into the communication device. They'd improvised from radio parts. "The big ones are coming through the mahogany grove." 30 meters to the east, Sergeant Kim Tae crouched behind a fallen log thick enough to stop a truck. His combat knife had been resharpened so many times, the blade was noticeably thinner, but it could still pierce alien hide if you knew where to strike. He'd learned that lesson the hard way 2 days ago when they'd encountered their first Krithak patrol. The aliens moved through the jungle like liquid death. Each one stood over 8 feet tall, their obsidian scales reflecting dappled sunlight as they glided between trees that barely accommodated their massive frames. Their heads swept left and right in calculated patterns, amber eyes scanning for any sign of human presence. Lee Jun counted 6 of them, moving in a formation that showed military discipline. These weren't mindless beasts. They were professional soldiers with thousands of years of combat experience. Their armor was a work of art, seamlessly integrated energy shields and protective plating that had turned every human weapon into a useless toy. Every weapon except the ones humans had learned to build from the jungle itself. Kim Tae, confirm. "Your position," Jun breathed into his comm. "Ready and waiting, Captain. The party favors are in place." The party favors were improvised explosive devices built from fertilizer stolen from an abandoned research station, combined with metal fragments from their destroyed vehicles. It wasn't sophisticated technology, but it didn't need to be. The aliens had made one crucial error in their tactical assessment. They'd assumed that primitive weapons meant primitive thinking. The lead Krithak paused directly beneath Park Hana's position, its massive head tilting as it seemed to sense something wrong. For a moment that stretched like eternity, predator and prey stared at each other across the vertical distance between branch and ground. Then Lee Jun pressed the detonator. The first explosion erupted from beneath the alien patrol like an underground volcano. The carefully shaped charge sent a column of earth and shrapnel upward, with enough force to crack the energy shields that had seemed impenetrable just days before. The blast wave knocked 2 Krithak off their feet, their armor systems sparking and failing, but the humans weren't finished. Park Hana's rifle cracked with deadly precision. Her first shot found the gap between helmet and chest armor on the nearest alien, sending it crashing backward into a cluster of bamboo. Her second shot pierced the energy pack on another's back, causing it to explode in a shower of alien technology. The surviving Krithak spun toward her position, their own weapons charging with an ominous whine. Energy bolts seared through the canopy, turning ancient wood into clouds of superheated steam. But Hana was already moving, swinging from branch to branch, like the jungle had taught every child who grew up in its embrace. Kim Tai emerged from the undergrowth like a nightmare made flesh. His approach was silent, invisible, perfectly timed. The combat knife in his hand found the soft spot beneath a Krithak's jaw, sliding upward into the alien brain with surgical precision. The towering warrior collapsed without a sound. The remaining aliens tried to regroup, tried to apply their superior technology and training to this impossible situation. But they were fighting humans on Earth, in the environment that had shaped humanity's ancestors for millions of years. Every tree, every shadow, every sound was a weapon in human hands. When the violence ended, 6 Krithak warriors lay motionless among the ferns and fallen leaves. But Li Jun had deliberately spared one, a younger alien whose armor bore fewer battle scars. This one would carry a message back to its commanders. The surviving Krithak stared up at the human captain with eyes that had never known defeat, had never experienced anything but absolute dominance over lesser species. But now those amber orbs held something entirely new, something that would change the course of the entire galactic war. For the first time in 3,000 years of conquest, a Krithak warrior had learned what it meant to be afraid. War Commander. Thexkar's claws scraped against the metal command console as he stared at the holographic battlefield display. The massive warship Bloodfang hummed around him, its systems processing data from across the planet below. But the information streaming in made no sense according to 3 millennia of Krithak military doctrine. Red markers blinked across, the tactical map like dying stars. Each one represented a hunting party that had simply stopped transmitting. 17 elite squads, over 200 of the galaxy's most feared predators, had vanished into the blue world below without sending so much as a distress signal. "Explain this to me again," Thexkar growled, his amber eyes fixed on Sub-Commander Raxvol. The smaller Krithak shifted his weight from foot to foot, a behavior that would have been inconceivable just a week ago. Fear was not an emotion their species possessed vocabulary for. "The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered," Raxvol began, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "They don't mass their forces for traditional battles. Instead, they attack in small groups, strike without warning, then disappear back into their cities and forests." The tactical display zoomed in on the planet's surface, showing the twisted remains of Krithak hover tanks scattered across various terrain types. Each wreck told the same impossible story: advanced alien technology destroyed by primitive human, weapons that shouldn't have been able to scratch their armor. "They modify their industrial equipment," Raxvol continued, highlighting several attack sites. "Construction vehicles become mobile weapons platforms. Their mining explosives are reconfigured into shaped charges that can penetrate our shields. Most disturbing of all, they sacrifice themselves to achieve objectives that any rational species would abandon." The bridge fell silent, except for the constant hum of ship systems. Every Krithak warrior present had spent their lives believing in their species' absolute superiority. The idea that primitive mammals could pose a threat to their hunters was like suggesting that insects could bring down a star cruiser. Survivor Kenthak limped onto the bridge, his left arm sealed in emergency biofoam where a human explosive had breached his armor. His report had been the first to reach the command ship, and its contents had shaken the Krithak military command to its core. "Tell them what you told me," Thexkar commanded. Kenthak's voice was barely above a whisper. "They knew we were coming, Commander. The humans had prepared the battlefield. Explosives hidden in rubble, projectile weapons positioned in buildings we thought were empty. When we advanced, they attacked from 6 directions simultaneously." The warrior paused, his breathing apparatus cycling faster as he relived the encounter. But that wasn't the worst part. When we surrounded their position, when they had no chance of escape, they didn't surrender. They didn't even try to negotiate. They just kept fighting. 3,000 light-years away, in the bombed-out ruins of what had once been Seoul, Private Cho Min-ho pressed his back against a chunk of concrete that had once been part of a shopping mall. The city around him was unrecognizable, Alien energy weapons had turned towering skyscrapers into twisted metal sculptures and reduced entire neighborhoods to radioactive glass. But the humans were still there, still fighting, still making the invaders pay for every block they claimed. "Contact approaching from the northeast," whispered Corporal Song Yina, her voice barely audible through the communication earpiece they'd salvaged from a destroyed military vehicle. She lay hidden in the wreckage of a subway entrance, her sniper rifle trained on the street above. Minho checked his improvised explosive device one more time. The components were laughably simple: agricultural fertilizer, metal scraps from destroyed cars, and a timer mechanism built from a digital watch. But weeks of trial and error had taught the human resistance exactly where to place such devices for maximum effect against Krithak armor. 6 targets, Yina reported. Standard patrol formation. They're using the main street like they own it. Staff Sergeant Oh Sung coordinated the ambush from his position in what remained of a department store. His squad of 12 soldiers had been reduced to 3 over the past month, but the survivors had learned lessons that no military academy could teach. They'd learned to turn every piece of rubble into cover, every shadow into concealment, every destroyed vehicle into a weapon. "Remember the mission," Oh Shung breathed into his comm. "We're not trying to win this war today. We're trying to make them understand that occupying Earth will cost them everything they have." The Krithak patrol moved down the devastated street with the confidence of apex predators. Their energy shields shimmered in the afternoon sun, their advanced sensors sweeping for any sign of human activity. They had conquered thousands of worlds using these same tactics. Overwhelming technological superiority combined with the psychological impact of their fearsome appearance. But Earth was teaching them that some species simply refused to be intimidated. Min Ho triggered his device at the precise moment the lead alien stepped over his position. The explosion erupted upward through the shattered pavement, sending chunks of concrete and twisted metal into the Krithak formation with devastating force. The shaped charge he'd learned to build from internet tutorials punched through energy, shields that could deflect starship weapons. Yina's rifle spoke twice in rapid succession, her bullets finding the gaps in alien armor that human engineers had mapped from captured equipment. Oh Seung emerged from his hiding place with a thermite charge that burned hot enough to melt through tank armor, pressing it against the nearest alien's power pack before diving for cover. The battle lasted 47 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 6 more Krithak warriors had learned that hunting humans was far more dangerous than their commanders had promised. Back on the command ship, Thexkar watched the tactical display update with another red marker. His hunting packs were being systematically destroyed by creatures that shouldn't have been able to scratch their armor. For the first time in his long military career, the war commander was beginning to understand what his prey had always felt. When they saw Krithak ships approaching their worlds, Colonel Yoon Jae-sung pulled his thermal mask tighter against his face as the Antarctic wind howled across the endless expanse of ice and snow. The temperature gauge on his wrist read -42 degrees Celsius, cold enough to kill an unprotected human in minutes. But for the Krithak forces that had retreated to this frozen wasteland, the cold would prove far more deadly than they could imagine. Through his binoculars, he watched the alien drop ships descend through the swirling blizzard like massive black insects against the white sky. The Krithak had made a tactical decision that seemed logical: retreat to an environment where their advanced technology would give them an overwhelming advantage over the primitive humans who had been causing them so much trouble. They had no idea they were walking into humanity's most carefully prepared trap. "Black frost actual to all units," Yoon spoke into his radio, his breath creating small clouds of vapor that froze instantly in the bitter air. "The hunters have become the hunted. Execute Operation Whiteout." Across the ice sheet, shapes that had appeared to be natural snowdrifts suddenly came alive. Human soldiers emerged from positions they had been preparing for weeks, their white camouflage making them nearly invisible against the Antarctic landscape. These weren't regular military units. They were the survivors, the soldiers who had learned to fight Krithak in a dozen different environments and lived to tell about it. Master Sergeant Bei Jin-woo rose from his concealed position near what appeared to be a natural ice formation. In reality, it was a carefully constructed bunker equipped with heating systems and weapon caches that had been pre-positioned months before the invasion began. His team of 8 soldiers had been living in these conditions for 3 weeks, acclimatizing to the cold that would soon become their greatest weapon. "Targets are landing in Sector 7, he reported through the comm system. "Looks like they brought their full atmospheric assault package." 2 kilometers away, Captain Moon So-young watched the alien ships through a scope that had been modified to function in extreme cold. Her sniper rifle was a work of art, a precision instrument that had been rebuilt and recalibrated specifically for this environment. Every component had been tested and retested to ensure it would function when the temperature dropped low enough to freeze alien blood. "I count 12 dropships," she whispered into her headset. "Estimate 200 hostiles. Inbound. They're landing in a tight formation, probably expecting to establish a defensive perimeter." The Kraythak had made their first mistake before they even touched the ground. Their tropical homeworld had never prepared them for temperatures that could freeze their breathing apparatus and cause their energy weapons to malfunction. The advanced environmental suits they wore were designed for space combat, not for the specific challenges of Earth's most hostile continent. As the first alien, warriors disembarked from their ships. They immediately encountered problems their technology couldn't solve. Their energy shields flickered and failed as power cells struggled to function in the extreme cold. Their sensors, designed to track heat signatures, became useless in an environment where everything registered as frozen. Private First Class Han. Dongmin lay prone behind a ridge of wind-blown snow, his modified assault rifle trained on the alien landing zone. The weapon in his hands had been rebuilt 3 times using parts salvaged from destroyed Kraythak equipment. Human engineers had learned to reverse engineer alien technology faster than should have been possible, adapting it to work with Earth-based components. "Movement at 3 o'clock, he whispered to his spotter, Corporal Lee Byung-hun, who was tracking targets through thermal imaging equipment they had captured and modified. "Looks like they're trying to establish a command post." The aliens moved across the ice with obvious difficulty. Their massive frames, so intimidating in normal environments, became liabilities in the deep snow. Each step required enormous effort, and their sophisticated equipment began failing as moisture froze in critical components. Sergeant Major Kang Subin coordinated the attack from a command bunker buried deep beneath the ice. Her screens showed satellite feeds that the aliens had never detected, human surveillance technology that had been hidden and hardened against alien sensors. The Kraythak had assumed that primitive humans couldn't possibly maintain orbital assets after their initial assault, but Earth's military had learned to be very creative about hiding their capabilities. "Artillery teams, prepare for fire mission," she commanded, speaking to gun crews positioned in concealed sites across the ice sheet. The weapons they controlled weren't traditional artillery. They were improvised rocket launchers, built from mining equipment and guided by satellites that officially didn't exist. The battle erupted without warning. Human forces attacked from positions the aliens hadn't even suspected existed. Explosives buried in the ice detonated beneath Kraythak formations, sending warriors flying across the frozen landscape. Sniper fire picked off isolated targets, while mortar rounds fell like deadly snow from the gray sky. But the most devastating weapon was the cold itself. Kraythak equipment failed at temperatures their designers had never imagined. Energy weapons sputtered and died. Communication systems became useless as components contracted and cracked. Even their vaunted armor became brittle in the extreme cold, shattering under impacts that would normally bounce off harmlessly. War Commander Thexkar's command ship, the mighty Blood Fang, had descended to coordinate the ground assault personally. The massive vessel hovered over the battlefield like a dark mountain, its weapon systems targeting human positions with devastating precision. But Kang Subin had been waiting for this moment. "Fire mission authenticated," she spoke calmly into her headset. "Target the command vessel, full salvo." The missiles that rose from concealed launches across the ice weren't sophisticated alien technology. They were human-built rockets, guided by mathematics, determination, and an intimate knowledge of their target's weaknesses. Each warhead had been designed specifically to exploit flaws in Kraythak hull armor that human engineers had discovered through weeks of studying wreckage. When the missiles struck Bloodfang, the explosions lit up the Antarctic sky like artificial seisons. The command ship, which had survived battles across 100 worlds, began to fall toward the ice with pieces of its hull streaming behind it like metallic tears. Thexkar felt his mighty vessel shudder and die around him as human weapons, primitive by galactic standards, tore through defenses that had seemed impregnable. As the ship crashed into the frozen wasteland with bone-jarring impact, the war commander faced a choice that no Krythak had ever confronted in 3,000 years of conquest: flee in dishonor or die on this death world that had turned his. Hunters into prey. For the first time in his species' military history, survival seemed more important than honor. Ambassador Li Chang-wook gazed through the viewport of the diplomatic shuttle New Seoul as the massive structure of Galactic Council station grew larger against the star-filled backdrop of space. The station was a marvel of engineering that defied human understanding, a crystalline metropolis floating in the void, its spiraling towers and interconnected rings housing representatives from 300 different worlds. The shuttle's pilot, Captain No Taejin, adjusted their approach vector with practiced skill. His hands moved across controls that had been reverse-engineered from captured Krythak technology, adapted by human engineers who had learned to make alien systems work with Earth-based components. The irony wasn't lost on anyone aboard. They were traveling to their first diplomatic meeting using technology taken from their defeated enemies. "First time seeing the council station?" asked General Park Jimin, looking up from the data tablets spread across his lap. Each tablet contained carefully prepared proposals for trade agreements, defense treaties, and technology exchanges that would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. Chang-wook nodded, still mesmerized by the sight. "It's bigger than I imagined." "How many beings live here?" "Approximately 12 million permanent residents," replied Dr. Shin Woo-jin, the expedition's chief scientist. Her research had been instrumental in understanding alien technology during the war. Representatives from every known spacefaring civilization, along with their support staff, families, and various service industries. Admiral Ko Yoon-jung, commander of Earth's newly formed Space Defense Force, studied tactical displays showing the station's defensive capabilities. Even in peacetime, her military mind catalogued potential threats and escape routes. The habit had kept humanity alive during the Krythak invasion, and she saw no reason to abandon it now. "Look at the docking bays." She pointed to massive openings in the station's hull. "Ships from across the galaxy. Some of those vessels are larger than our biggest cities." Director Lim Jae-ho, head of Earth's intelligence services, was less impressed by the spectacle and more focused on the political implications. "Remember, we're not just representing Earth today. We're representing the idea that a species doesn't need to be the strongest to survive." Every minor civilization in the galaxy is watching this meeting. As their shuttle approached the diplomatic docking ring, Chang-wook could see other vessels through the transparent aluminum barriers, sleek ships that seemed to be grown rather than built, crystalline craft that pulsed with internal light, and massive cargo haulers that looked like floating cities. Each one represented a different species, a different culture, a different way of looking at the universe. The docking procedure was handled by automated systems that guided their shuttle into a berth with mechanical precision. As the airlock sealed and atmospheric processes equalized pressure, Chang-wook felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. "Atmospheric composition confirmed," announced the station's greeting system in perfect Korean. "Welcome to Galactic Council Station. Representatives of Earth, please proceed to Reception Bay 7 for diplomatic processing." The reception bay was a marvel of alien architecture. Soaring ceilings supported by what appeared to be living crystal formations, walls that displayed constantly shifting patterns of light, and floors that seemed to absorb sound to create an atmosphere of respectful quiet. But what caught Chang-wook's attention were the beings waiting to see them. Dozens of alien species had gathered to witness humanity's first official appearance at the council station. Some were tall and graceful, others short and stocky. A few floated in environmental suits filled with gases that would be toxic to humans. Several appeared to be entirely mechanical, while others seemed to exist as pure energy contained within force fields. "The species that broke the Krithak," whispered a being that looked like a walking tree, its words translated by the universal communication system built into the station's walls. "I heard they defeated 3 war packs using nothing but primitive, kinetic weapons," added a creature that resembled a floating jellyfish made of silver liquid. The human delegation moved through the crowds with dignity, acknowledging the curious stares and whispered conversations with polite nods. They had prepared for this moment for months, studying diplomatic protocols and learning about the various species they would encounter. The council chamber itself was breathtaking, a vast spherical room with seating arranged in concentric circles around a central speaking platform. Holographic displays showed real-time translations in hundreds of languages, while environmental controls maintained comfortable conditions for beings from radically different worlds. 300 species were represented in the chamber, from the ancient Melody, who had achieved spaceflight before humans discovered fire, to the recently contacted Zephyrians, who had only joined galactic civilization within the past century. Each delegation sat in specially designed seating that accommodated their unique physiologies. In the farthest corner, almost hidden from view, sat the Krithak delegation. The once proud warriors who had terrorized the galaxy for millennia now appeared diminished, their amber eyes avoiding contact with the human representatives. Their defeat on Earth had shattered more than just their military confidence, it had broken their entire worldview. Council Speaker Mordain rose from the central platform, his ancient form commanding immediate attention from every being in the chamber. His species, the Eternals, had been mediating galactic disputes since before most civilizations had developed written language. His voice, when he spoke, carried the authority of countless centuries. "Representatives of Earth," his words resonated, through the chamber's translation matrix, reaching every being present in their native language. "Your species has accomplished something unprecedented in recorded galactic history. You have proven that technological superiority does not guarantee victory, that courage and determination can overcome seemingly impossible odds." Chang Wook stood slowly, feeling the weight of 8 billion human souls behind his words. Around him, the chamber fell silent, as species that had never given humanity a second thought prepared to hear from the beings who had accomplished the impossible. "Honorable Council," he began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "Humanity comes before you, not as conquerors seeking dominion, but as neighbors seeking cooperation. We offer our unique perspective, that true strength comes not from the weapons we carry or the technologies we possess, but from the unbreakable will to protect what we hold dear." The chamber erupted in sounds that the translation system interpreted as respectful applause, though the actual noises ranged from harmonic tones to rhythmic clicking to patterns of flashing light. In the corner, the Krithak delegation remained silent, forever changed by their encounter with the species that had taught them the meaning of fear. As the ceremony continued and formal treaties were signed, Chang Wook realized that this moment marked more than just humanity's entry into galactic civilization. It represented a fundamental shift in how the galaxy understood power, courage, and the potential that existed in every species willing to fight for their survival. The age of human isolation was over. The age of humanity among the stars had begun. The end